Right, Echo, episode 4 and 5.
Yes.
Now, I watched these at the weekend, so these are a little bit murkier for me.
I watched them yesterday.
I might need you to hit me with some fact checks if I get myself a bit muddled up here.
Okay.
So we ended episode 3 with the big reveal that Kingpin isn't in fact dead.
Yeah, he stepped out of the shadows.
And we just got a bit of that stare downy thing, and then the episode cut.
Yeah.
Right. So before we get into episode 4 and 5, if this is the level of cooking that Marvel's Spotlight is going to do, we are ready.
Yeah.
I'm so down.
I don't disagree. This has been, for a debut into Marvel Spotlight, and something that we were slightly concerned about the character they chose to start with, and this premise that like Spotlight's meant to be for anyone to jump in and watch and not need prior knowledge. They've done a great job, and it's hard not to compare it to the other MCU shows, but this has been like great start to finish. Don't feel like there's really been any issues that we've had issues with some of the other MCU shows. So it's like, if this is the quality for Spotlight, and if they can keep low-key quality for the main shows, and moving forward, we get this, we might be in a good era of
we might have turned the corner of what we heard the problem was with Disney Plus, which was people weren't having to do any kind of prep work. They were just given money to do whatever the fuck they wanted, and they were kind of bringing in this, no, you have to make a pilot, you have to sell us the show, make sure we know what's happening. And if that is now like Loki's a result of that and Echo's a result of that, it just goes to show that quality control is important.
Yeah, and having the right people in the right places as well.
Like I said, the only issue I've had with Echo at any point in them first 3 episodes was, of course, episode 1, where it's a little bit jumpy and weird at the start. I think if they need to do that again, they need to find a way to smooth that out a little bit more. But other than that, wow. Just wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's been great.
And I like that because they're telling lower stakes stories, it didn't need a big battle at the end. It didn't need someone to be defeated at the end. It was just, this is the end of the story.
Yeah,
because that's how comic book works.
Yeah. I mean, last week when we talked about the first 3 episodes, I spoke about how I was unsure if it's going to feel like it ended on there should have been more. Like, I was worried maybe it's going to be too short, because I'm in that mindset of the MCU shows where we're like expecting some big ending, like big fight, big like conclusion. Whereas this, there was a conclusion, like a solid conclusion, but it was no more than it really needed to be because of the character that it was. And actually, I think they did a great job of 5 episodes was perfect. They hit everything they needed to do, and the character reached a point that I think was a good conclusion and made a good introduction for this character.
Yes, absolutely. So over the last 2 episodes, the kind of story had progressed to a point where Maya was trying to take over control of Kingpin's operations.
Yeah, she wanted to be Queenpin.
Yeah. And she then discovered that Kingpin wasn't dead despite her best efforts. Yeah. So we were then kind of in this position where she's like getting ready to like run, fight, whatever. She's like, I shot this motherfucker in the face. He's probably not impressed.
Yeah.
It's a valid reaction to be a bit scared in that place. I think if I shot someone in the face and they didn't die, I would be rooted to the spot in fear as well.
What I thought was a little bit funny about that scene is like, she puts her jacket kind of back on and grabs her bike over. I'm thinking, you're not going to be able to start a bike and leave before he could grab you. Like, what do you think you're going to achieve here? Like, you're going to have to talk to him. Like, there is no escaping this situation right now. But I get it. Like, yeah, if Kingpin walks out after you just think you've killed him, then you're going to be a bit like, sorry?
So then he is just like, I just want to talk. There will be no violence, just talk.
We want to have Sunday dinner.
Yeah. So he gives her contact lenses.
Yeah. Well, they grab her, don't they? And you think, in that moment, you're like, oh shit, okay, she's about to get like punished for whatever. Yeah. And then they just shove a contact lens in.
Yeah. And this is something that I noticed at the time, but then is actually said in the show. I think in episode 5. He tries to present it as this whole sweet thing of like, look, I've made these contacts so we can communicate easily.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, yeah, but like, didn't he learn Japanese just to get ahead of business in Japan? He could learn sign language to communicate with this niece that he loves and adores so much.
Yeah.
And then, like later on, either at the end of episode 4 and episode 5, he couldn't even be bothered to learn to sign a little bit to talk to me.
Yeah. It's
And that's the kind of thing that is an important part of Kingpin's character.
yeah, he likes to show that he like act like he cares, but he's all just doing it for
Exactly that.
personal gain, essentially.
He is a dangerous kind of mentally deranged
Mm.
because he genuinely believes the lies he's spinning a lot of the time. He
Yeah.
genuinely believes he's upset that his father died, like when he said to Myra in that flashback,
Mm.
this is the hammer that killed my that I used to kill my father. Or sorry,
Yeah.
in the show he shows her the hammer, but he's always told her that he was killed. He never said that he killed his dad.
Yeah, he just made that connection with her because he was like, "Oh, my dad also died."
Yes, he's very good at withholding and misusing information to get what he
Mm.
wants, but he always tricks himself and almost gaslights himself into thinking he's doing it for these morally righteous reasons. Um,
Yeah.
so that was really interesting. Um, it's a really cool piece of technology. And what it does is it means if Maya ever has an interaction where she understands someone who's not signing easily, it
Well,
gives us an easy out.
it did because she takes it out eventually.
Oh, we did see her take it out, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's all right. In my head, she's kept it in case she ever needs it.
So I was like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of like giving her a piece of technology for future, like you say." And then she goes and rips it out, and I'm like, "Ah." But that was like
But
an
I guess,
episode later. It was in like the
but
final episode.
I guess at the same time, if we're going to show diversity, let's show diversity, warts and all. Like, and
Mm.
I'm not like that sounded really like I was against diversity. But like,
No.
if we're gonna make sure we're like including people as we absolutely should, there are obviously difficulties with communicating with deaf people, but that doesn't mean don't include them. It means make the fucking effort.
Yeah, there's like stuff like they could use this tech as a cop out kind of, and also essentially make it easier for them to produce the show. But it's like that doesn't really show the realistic aspect of what Echo would be going through.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, it was very interesting that once again he's trying to misuse this information. Like, let's just have Sunday dinner together,
Hmm.
like we used to. There's nothing wrong. I don't care you shot me in the face. I just want to talk. I'm your uncle. I care about you. I love you. We can work through anything. And the entire time, her now seeing through his lies, she's kind of like, "What's your angle here?"
Yeah, she's
Um,
immediately trying to, because he's taught her too well, essentially, she's trying to find what his angle is.
yeah. And she hits him with the devastating one-liner of like, "It's Tuesday or it's Thursday or whatever
Yeah.
it is."
She's like, "It's Tuesday, stop trying to bullshit that it's for Sunday dinner."
What do you mean Sunday dinner? It's Tuesday. I'll see you in a week.
Then he's like, she's like, "Oh, I'll open the wine," immediately pours it down the drain
Yeah.
because she don't
I
trust it.
loved that scene. The tension built in that scene of these two staring at each other, neither sure if this is about to
Yeah.
escalate into a fight or if they're actually going to have dinner. And then, like, Kingpin kind of showing his back as, like, a case of, I'm going to trust you here. Can you trust me? So
Mhm.
then after that, she does the same. It's very much kind of, we've spoken about it before with, like, the Clone Wars. No, sorry, Rebels. When Obi-Wan fights Darth Maul and
Mm.
kills him.
Yes, he
And
mirrors
it's
him.
like sometimes really impressive choreography doesn't have to be spinny and flashy
Yeah.
and over the top. Sometimes it can be just as little as thinking about the actor's body movements and letting the actors tell a story with their body. Because
Yeah.
there's not a lot said in this interaction at all.
No, but you
Um,
feel the tension.
yeah, and it does such a good job, like with the lights being dimmed and like the illusion of this just being a family dinner. And family dinners, like for a lot of people, do always carry a little bit of tension because families aren't perfect.
Hmm.
So, like, you can understand the idea of tension at a family dinner, and then they just dial that up with when you bring in like the violent elements to it, it's just so interesting the way they did it. Vincent D'Onofrio and Alana Cox absolutely earn their paycheck for that scene
Mm.
alone, let alone the rest of the brilliant work they do in this show.
Yeah, and obviously then it gets to like, I love that she cracks open the Coke and he's like, "What happened to the wine?" She's like, "Poured it down the drain." He's like, "Oh, that
I
was
was
just
really
so and so, and it came highly recommended." And she's like, "Yeah, it's cool." Oh,
I was really expecting him to name drop the amount it cost.
yeah, that wouldn't have surprised
I,
me.
I, I was like really expecting that as like once again Kingpin trying to show that he just buys affection and whatever.
But
Um
and then he just cracks out some different takeaway food essentially.
yeah. Um and basically it just boils down to come and be in charge.
I'll give it you all. Just come home with me.
Yeah, which I said I thought is might be what they're
Yeah,
planning here. Um and I ended up being kind of on
almost
the
on.
right
Yeah,
lie, especially
yeah,
when we had in the post credit
yeah,
scene.
yeah.
So that's really interesting. And she's kind of like, "No, fuck you. I don't trust you. Get out."
Yeah, she's like she can read that there's a catch, and there
Yeah,
quite clearly would be like the fact that it's like just come back with me and I'll give you everything. It's like it's not going to be that easy, is it?
yeah. It's a proper just get in the car and everything will be okay. And
Mm.
like, no, don't get in the car. That's a really bad idea.
But also to point out at this point, he's taken off his little eye patch thing. I'm sorry, Maya, but you're a shit shot.
I think we need to give more credit to how much of a fucking tank
Well, oh,
Kingpin
don't get
is.
me wrong, yes, but the fact that like he still has his eye, like, come on.
Crazy man.
You could have at least
I
taken the
don't.
eye out.
If I was like a very highly trained killer and I shot someone in the face at point blank range, and then like what was it, 5 months later, the motherfucker shows up with only that kind of a scar to have dinner with me, I'm not even sure I'd have the balls to pour the wine away.
Mm.
I'd be
And
like, why are you alive?
yeah, true. But yeah, she says no, essentially, and he's like, "Well, I'm on a plane. I'm getting a plane or whatever in the morning,
Be on it.
or whatever day it was. I hope I see you there." Which again is like him making out like he doesn't care that if she doesn't get on it. Okay, cool. Clearly he did, which we see
Yes.
later. But it's like it's all just him trying to make out like it's not a big deal because he wants her to go back so he can control her.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. And it's this Vincent D'Onofrio is so good. I'm so glad they
Mm.
didn't lose him because
Oh yeah.
I can't, I like, it's really difficult to capture Kingpin. And don't get me wrong, it's definitely a different take to Kingpin that I necessarily would have instantly thought of.
Mm.
Um, but it's so well done with so many layers put there. You can tell that Vincent D'Onofrio has really made sure he studied up and understands this character, and
Yeah.
especially his version of this character.
Mm.
But it's like the little quote from Maya of like violence has always been our language and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like that being then cut in with the flashback of them having one of their dinners
Mm-hmm.
and the sign interpreter being taken away to be executed.
Yeah.
Like violence has literally always been their language. The person that allowed them to communicate was just murdered.
Yeah.
It's just oh, I could speak for hours about the quality of writing, acting, direction, and like thematics in these two episodes. It might be two of the best episodes. No, for Disney Plus, it probably
Mm.
is the two best episodes they put out for them regards. Um,
It
what I
was
did
very.
also really enjoy is alongside obviously our big excitement because Kingpin's back and
Mhm.
all the kind of like idea of Spotlight being this street level stuff is starting to take a bit of shape, and we're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, this is good. Seeing the culmination of the ancestral storyline that was going on
Yes.
was a lot of fun.
So what I think you obviously brought it up last week when we were talking about it, and obviously we talked about it in Echo's character profile that she goes on a spirit quest and that's kind of it.
Yeah,
And they were clearly blending that into less of like an intentional spirit quest that she's gone on, but her coming home has kind of triggered this ancestral thing inside of her that
yeah,
is coming to light. And it being like ramping up throughout the episode, and now obviously episode 4 and 5 were like we got to see a lot more of that, her actually coming, facing it and finding out what's going on, and going to talk to her grandmother and learning a bit more about what happened there and how she's connected. And kind of essentially by the fifth episode, she's come to terms with her family and where she's come from, and kind of reaccepting that she has a place and a connection here after she'd
Yeah,
kind of cut herself off because she thought they'd cut her off. This
it
kind of full
was.
circle moment.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's a full circle moment. I loved the way they're trying to do it because it is very much like you said when we discussed in the character profile about her going on kind of like a spirit quest.
Hmm.
Um, you kind of like, oh, okay, cool. They probably won't adapt that because a lot of the time that's just meditating and thinking, but instead they've put like this kind of different twist on it.
Yeah.
Um, and the beauty is it's kind of given her obviously some enhanced abilities that we see, but at the same
Hmm.
time it's gone back to kind of like the old school idea of like a hero with powers that doesn't fully understand their powers. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, she gets it comes from her ancestry and like her lineage goes all the way back to like the first Chikawa people,
But she don't
but
understand why it's happening.
don't understand any more than that.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, and then she starts to remember like her mum healing the bird and realizing, hang on, there's obviously some way to control this. Like there's
yeah,
a way to call on it when it's needed, so to speak.
yeah. And it's
Um,
like the idea her mum was a healer, but she's a warrior. So
mm,
it's like it's slightly different. It's just
yeah,
this I challenge anyone to watch the back half of Echo, especially because that's when it's really ramped up and got going, and not think that superhero content can absolutely be high media and high art because the way
yeah.
they put this stuff together is just stunning.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
but basically, what it boils down to is Kingpin, in a last ditch effort to get Maya to comply, kidnaps her grandmother and her cousin.
yeah. And then plans to blow up the festival.
The Yeah, which is proper Kingpin shit. It's like, okay, cool. I tried to be nice,
Now I'm going to destroy everything you
and just like,
love.
yeah, like the saying is what, kill 'em with kindness or whatever, and it's like he views that as step one, and when
Hmm.
that doesn't work, step two is okay, just kill them.
Now I'm like boss evil,
Yeah,
because that moment when he like the grandma gets bumped into picking up the letters in the post office, and then Kingpin steps in to help and he's chatting. I'm like, no, 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 this is gonna go bad. He's being evil.
but this is a recurring theme that they used a lot in the Netflix shows, and I mean
Hmm,
maybe we need to do a retroactive on the Netflix shows now that they're 100% canon,
maybe.
but all of the villains across all of that are very three-dimensional, and if like if the viewer can just imagine rewatching the Netflix shows right now, what happens is you introduce your hero, you're
Hmm.
introduced to the villain. You know they're the villain because they're doing bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Then you normally get an episode that's more centered around the villain, which makes them a sympathetic character. You see Kilgrave being experimented on and abused by his parents. You see Kingpin being bullied by his friends and his
Mm.
dad abusing him and his mother. And then they do their first evil act, but they
Yeah.
do it out of self defense. Kilgrave kills his parents to stop them hurting him. Kingpin kills his dad to stop him
Mm-hmm.
from beating his mother. And you find them a sympathetic character because then you're like, oh, I could be them.
Yeah.
I could have been put in a situation where I have this horrible life. I snap one day for a valid reason, and that just puts
Mm-hmm.
me on the wrong path that I can't correct. I should feel a bit sorry for them.
Yeah.
And then you always get that grounding moment in the last or second to last episode of the series where they do something so abhorrent, you're like, okay, no, I couldn't be them because they are just evil.
Yeah.
Yes, they had a shit upbringing, but they had plenty of chances to correct along the way. They are
And they
now
didn't. Yeah.
choosing to
Yeah.
be outright evil.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful arc and a formula that Netflix used beautifully.
They did. Yeah.
And once again, like we see like a microcosm of it here, because they don't need to rehash the same idea, but
Mm-hmm.
we see Kingpin employing the same things. Like, oh no, I'm sympathetic, feel sorry for me. Like, kind of like stereotypical online nice guy behavior. It's like, oh, no one ever loves me, everyone hates me, I just want to be loved. And then
Yeah.
when no one gives in to his feel sorry for me
Yeah.
act, it's like, right, I'm going to kill your grandmother and your cousin if you don't come back to New York with me.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, because we've seen Kingpin from Netflix, and we know, like, the people that have watched that have this understanding. So they didn't need to fully go into it again with him. But like for us, we saw like him mention his dad again, like he's doing the same shit again. We know this routine. And then
Yeah,
it's like they do it, they play it, and we see him with the grandma. And we're like, well, we know where this is going. He is like, we know his true colors, and we're waiting for like the people on the screen to realize.
yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely
But
that.
that final episode as well, something that I think they did an amazing job on was culturally showing the Native American side of things. And I think obviously my understanding of that culture is very limited. We didn't really learn it in school over here in the UK.
No, Native American history is not something that's even
No.
really spoken about
So
over
like
here.
obviously to that extent, I don't know if it's 100% faithful to everything, but from the perspective we have, I think it came across like they did a very good job and
So,
respectable.
what I will say, and I might be slightly wrong here, but based on my knowledge, Marvel approached the Chikawa
Well,
Nation
yeah, there's a
and
thing at the end.
they worked incredibly closely with them to ensure accuracy, fair representation, and stuff like that. So it wasn't just is it okay if we use your name in the
Yeah.
nation? And they went, yeah. Like apparently they like worked really, really closely with them.
Yeah, I saw the thing at
So
the
hopefully that
end.
means it's very accurate.
Saw the thing that said thanks to them for working with us on this. So yeah, like the fact that they went to that much those lengths to represent that culture as well was a
In
great job by them.
Yeah, in a world when it is so easy to not bother, and
Mm,
no one would have really said anything, if we're being honest, it's nice that they bothered.
yes.
And we shouldn't be in a world where we're giving credit for someone being bothered to make sure they're representing people faithfully. But such is the beast at the minute. At least they bothered.
Yeah, and
So that's a step in the right direction.
post credit scene.
Yes. So, we get a kind of mini big fight. Maya shows off her
Yeah.
powers. The kind of posing and like the going through the generations looked fucking
It
awesome. I
was
loved
pretty
that.
cool, yeah.
She then like gives power to her grandmother and her cousin who kick ass, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then they create a diversion. Kingpin escapes because that's what Kingpin does.
Well, yeah, she gives Kingpin this weird vision.
Yeah, she like tries to heal his trauma, which is fucking brilliant.
Well, yeah,
And
she
it'll be
makes him
interesting to
face
see
the
how that
trauma
affects
and
him.
try and like face it. And I think her doing that is then what makes him hang on a second, I don't want to fuck with this. This is some weird shit. And runs away.
Yeah.
And then we get the uncle.
Yeah, Henry shooting the rocket launcher guy. And I love the announcer just going, "Oh, someone set off the fireworks early." It's like, my brother in Christ, there is no colour in that. That is just an explosion.
Yeah, and there's now shrapnel raining on us.
Yeah, yeah. That was one bit. Obviously, I don't know too much, but like, RPGs are designed to like spread that metal evenly and dangerously. Someone must have got hurt.
It depends on like what angle it went. If it went more
Well,
over towards trees and maybe, but yeah, there's a bit of a weird grey
There's going
area
to be
there.
some raining hot metal that's very sharp. That's probably best case scenario scratched up some cars. Absolute best case scenario.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we move on to the post credit scene, which was Kingpin on a plane.
Yep.
Obviously heading back to New York.
Freaked out.
Yeah, and he stops what he's doing to listen to the news.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, there is no front runner in the mayoral campaign yet. It's anybody's race, even really late. They just want someone who's going to come out and they want
Be a
fighter.
fighter. Yeah.
Yeah, they want someone who's going to tell them what they're going to do and do it. They don't want any of this dancing around the issue. And that kind of perfectly sets up how Kingpin becomes mayor. Because everyone's like, well, he's gone to prison. Everyone knows he's a criminal if the Netflix stuff is canon.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. Can we just pause? There is someone right now in the real fucking world who is this close to being made the party candidate for the Republican in the next presidential race, who is on who is literally spending his weekdays in federal court hearings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's
can
people
we stop pretending American people wouldn't vote for a criminal?
Yeah, and also like you've got to remember in the scenario is going to be Kingpin if he does like obviously setting him up to become mayor. We know from the comics, like his whole thing is against vigilantes. He's very much going to spin the whole prison thing is because I was wrongly put there by a vigilante. A vigilante shot me. I've been like, you need someone who's going to fight your corner, especially if this is obviously going to be set post Blip. We know in like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, post Blip, politically, things are a mess since post Blip.
Yeah.
And like, so this idea that Kingpin couldn't become, of course he could. Like, corruption, like uncertainty, people will vote for someone who comes out and has a strong enough like presence and happens to fight the right things at the right
And also,
moments.
like, he has a lot of money, he has a lot of power, and he's dangerous. He will use that to get
Mhm.
political. He'll
He'll
use that to
bribe people
strong
and
arm.
get
Yeah, he'll use that to strong arm someone into supporting him
yeah,
that buys a bit more public favor.
yeah.
Like, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this goes.
And with what we talked about earlier in the podcast with Who is Muse, knowing that Daredevil Born Again, potentially the main villain's going to be Muse, you can now see sort of how Daredevil, like Matt Murdock, can't stop Kingpin becoming mayor because he's too busy dealing with Muse. And then Kingpin spinning all that stuff, if this is all going to be true and if they use Muse. Like, you can see where this Daredevil show is potentially going to go with Matt knowing that Kingpin's trying to become mayor, got too much he's dealing with this other person to be able to stop this, and then you've got Kingpin spinning what's going on in his favor. Like, you can sort of see where the story might be going for Daredevil Born Again, which is very exciting.
And also, a side note, I believe someone else that ends up taking the role of mayor after him, or is someone he beats in the race for mayor or something like that, is Luke Cage.
Oh.
Son of Harlem becomes, I don't know if Luke Cage ever actually makes it to the mayor office or what, but like that is the kind of stuff like we could see potentially.
That'd be pretty cool.
Like, we've got some really cool potential stuff. I can't remember perfectly, but I also think Wilson Fisk is responsible for releasing a lot of criminals from prison under his anti-vigilante propaganda. So
Yep.
someone like a Scorpion or a Vulture, who I believe he then turns into like an elite task force to deal with vigilantes. So what you get is you get like these traditional Spider-Man and other New York-based heroes villains are turned into the police. Like, there is some really cool stuff they can play around with here, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, right now Echo's obviously left in a place of she's with her people and kind of set up her character, but she's now there for them to use if they want to, whether it's just in Spotlight or if she shows up in Daredevil or something else. But yeah,
I love this show. This
it was
style of
really good.
storytelling is a breath of fresh air in the Marvel world, because we've been saying for a while they've really been struggling with this idea of how do we get bigger, how do we get bigger, how do we get bigger, and they need to redirect themselves back towards
Street
grounded storytelling. Maybe it'll be next week, maybe it'll have to wait a little while. It depends how much research I need to do. I'm gonna put a piece together about why Spider-Man needs to stop being in films. And it's gonna piss some people off. But I have reasons, and they are good ones. But
Interesting.
that's story for another week.